Well, welcome to this episode of Unstoppable Force TV, and welcome to Mark Shearer, Doctor of Philosophy and founder of Encompass Life. Good morning, good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon to you. Good morning to you as well.
It's,
Saturday morning on the other side of the world, yes?
yes, it is, and the future's looking good, I can promise you that. Thanks so much for coming on to Unstoppable Force TV. Now, tell me about Encompass Life.
Encompass Life. I started this company about 5 years ago, I guess now, and it's come from decades of me studying different modalities and consciousness for about the last 35 years. Plus, I had a lot of health issues and things that the doctors couldn't cure. So I knew it has something to do with what I was doing because I believe we're all spiritual beings. And so, therefore, all our problems are spiritually created and spiritually solved. So I began to study a different modality probably about 15 years ago that had me really start to deal with suppressed feelings, which I'm from Texas, cowboy. We don't talk about our feelings much around here, you know?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You got to do whatever it takes to get her done, boy. That kind of
And
stuff.
so you started out as an engineer, and your engineering sciencey background, but really traditional methods. How did you make that leap
Yeah,
from
yeah.
engineering side of that engineering bit of your brain to recognizing the importance of our spirituality?
Well, I was interested I went to a Catholic school, so I was interested in miracles and the life of Christ and like how some of the stories in the Bible and hearing how different people were doing, like how people were living and doing things differently back then, even
Hmm.
living to be longer. And even here on the planet, I read a story about the people on the Marshall Islands that before we nuked them, before we did the atomic testing on them, people were living their average age was 180 years old when they died.
Wow.
Yeah, some of them were living to be 250 years old. So I'm going like, what's going on here because something's happening. And I remember reading articles back in the 70s, and it was talking about how doctors said 90 or 95% of all disease is caused by stress.
Hmm.
That's what they said back then, and then as I noticed that when that article came out, that maybe they would be mentioning it here or there, but then it would fewer and fewer people begin to talk about it. They begin to start addressing, go it's heavier and heavier into the drugs. Well, what's stress? What causes stress? So I started to explore all that stuff. But anyway, the crossover from engineering, with engineering, I was able to be able to see improvements which could be made in a system.
Right.
And that's one of the things about engineering. Okay, so what's this? How can we refine it, make it better? So when I was taking consciousness classes, things just some things just felt weird to me, and everything that felt weird, I knew there was an upgrade available in it. So
Hmm.
I would take it apart and go, okay, so how can I improve this? What's going on here? So that's how the engineering background came into doing what I'm doing in spirituality. But the spirituality thing and the past and the personal growth stuff is something I've been interested in since I was a kid. So that was always running in the background.
And how's that? You mentioned health issues. How has your journey in understanding the Encompass Life concepts? Uh,
Yeah,
how
like
has that shifted life?
yeah. So the things that I think I shared with you before, we've done a couple of interviews before.
Hmm.
My childhood was really painful. My dad was a strong disciplinarian. My mother was schizophrenic, so it was really an interesting environment to be raised in. Um, I had a lot of anger and resentment as a kid, and I believed I should have had different parents. I believed life happened to me and I got the wrong end of the deal and life wasn't fair. And my parents, I was raised in life's not fair and
Yeah.
kind of like life's like a turd on the bicycle tire. Same old crap keeps coming around again and again.
Hmm.
I have all these weird little Texas sayings, but they make sense. Um, so I had all this anger and resentment inside me. So I started having health issues, back problems. I started having back problems when I was probably 12 or 13 years old. Played a lot of sports, and I attributed the back problems to me playing sports. But really, when I started getting into the stuff we're doing here, I realized the back problem came from me feeling not unsupported. And that's exactly when I didn't feel supported by my parents as a kid. I used to tell them, like y'all aren't supporting me, and I don't, I use those exact words, and I started getting back problems about the same time. I didn't get how important language was at that moment. I still stayed in the suffering and making it wrong of it, and all I could see was the painful side of life. And like I said, probably about, I guess I was probably 50 years old, and I had a company that I had a friend of mine work for me who we had a big embezzlement in it that cost me it was a big deal. I remember Friday, November 13th, 2009, a bank swept my bank accounts, and we go down to the bank to pay. I got $250,000 in payroll go out that day, and there's no money in the bank.
Ouch.
So, ouch. Yep, yep. So, I had some really, really, really tough times. So, in the middle of all those tough times, was um, when I found all these suppressed feelings that was causing all this stuff in my life, not feeling supported. Well, guess what that produced? Bank sweeping my bank account. I had health issues. I had speech impediment as a child. If I said a word incorrectly, I'll get hit. My speech impediment turned into a stuttering issue. 20 years ago, I couldn't speak in front of a group. I couldn't say the word love. It was like somebody was choking me even to say that little four-letter word.
Yeah.
And one of the things we do here at Encompass Life is whatever your greatest weakness is really an inversion of what you're really here for. And you, um, we have a system where you can find that weakness and the inversion. When people get it, it's like, oh my God, of course that's what I'm here for. So me, somebody would have told me 20 years ago, you're going to be here and you're going to be a public speaker and you're going to you're going to wake people up to the power of love. I would have went, are you nuts?
Yep.
You are nuts, guy. I can't even speak in front of a group. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was stuttering. Oh my God, it was terrible. I was sweat through a shirt to speak for 3 minutes. Doing something like this 20 years ago, impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And with this system, I went from a stutterer to clear speech in under 10 minutes. I'll say really under 5, but I'll be generous to say it was under 10 minutes. I went from a stutterer to clear speech in under 10 minutes,
So
and being able to speak in front of a group.
I want to come back to the system and some of the courses you run, but you mentioned earlier on about the words that we use. You spoke about support, and that led to your back pain. And talk to me more about how we can be smarter, because I touch on this in workshops. But talk to me about how we can be smarter about the language, the words that we use.
Yeah, so we can. Um, I've come from some backgrounds where we would police every word we spoke instead of saying want to say choose. Like I said, I want you. Somebody saying I want you to say I choose. Instead of saying maybe need, say I have, I love having, something like that. Instead of saying the kids, say my children.
Mm-hmm.
So that it produces a feeling. So a lot of the backgrounds I worked with were people were saying the words correctly, and very little results were being produced in that background because when we have a manifestation, it's when our thoughts, our words, and our feelings align. So what we do here at Encompass Life is we really, really work on the feeling side, so where people become aware and they begin to feel all their feelings. Most people are walking around numb, and they're looking for ways to be numb. Alcohol, drugs. I don't like what I feel, so here's whatever Xanax or Prozac or whatever. All the stuff that they, the candy du jour at the pharmaceutical company, right?
Yeah.
Um, but all those things numb the person out, and everything here is a blessing as long as we can see it as a blessing. If we don't see it as a blessing, it turns into a burden in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, the ability to feel and really, really really feel my words as I speak them, then I auto-correct by the way I feel when a particular word comes out of my mouth. And a word will either thud me or it will lift me. It says in scripture, it says life and death exist in the power of the tongue. We quote scripture frequently, but this isn't a religion. This is quantum physics.
Great. I knew we'd get there at some point.
Yep.
Quantum physics, I love talking about quantum physics in
Yeah.
events and workshops because the first thing, I mean, when people say quantum physics, the first thing you get is a snap lockdown.
Mm.
Almost, I'm not clever enough because you said quantum physics. But quantum physics, yeah, I mean, I know that if you ever say you understand quantum physics, you clearly don't. But
Yeah.
talk, talk to me about
Yeah.
you
So, and
physics.
quant, and um, there's a couple different experiments they did. Um, one in chemistry. This professor, he took a chemistry put a chemistry lab assignment to his students, and he said, "Put this to this, these things together, and you're going to produce this result."
Mm,
Well, everyone did it, and they produced the results. Well, when he went back and looked at what they did with the chemical, he goes, "Oh my God, I gave him the wrong formula. Like this is no way this particular cocktail should have produced this result." But everyone believed it, and it happened.
yep. Hmm.
And so the observer changes reality. The deal between the is an electron a wave or is it a particle? And
Hmm.
they were observing it, and if they wouldn't observe it, it would show up as a wave. When they would begin to observe it, it would show up as a solid, as a particle. And so we're changing reality by the way we observe things. I'll give you another example. So if you have a lot of anger and resentment inside you, guess what you see?
Hmm. You
Anger
see
and
it
resentment.
again. Yep.
Yep. I remember one day I was living in back and forth between Austin and Houston, and I go to Austin and I was going to trim my beard. It was all scruffy, and I have this big beard trimmer. It's the biggest thing in my overnight kit. Little shaving kit thing, black
Hmm.
and chrome, big beard trimmer. And I open the bag up, and it's not in there. They'll go through the whole bag. It's a little bitty bag. It's not in there. Like, my girlfriend. I said, I bet you my girlfriend took it out. She probably did something with it. Blah blah. I mean, piss. So next morning, I'm brushing my teeth. I look at my bag, and it's laying right up on top. I mean, there's like no way I could have missed that thing,
Hmm.
or did I? I mean, or what happened? But I mean, I looked in it, took things out, and it wasn't there, or so I thought. But all I could see in that moment was more things I was pissed about.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves on how many we compete on how well we can complete. You think you have trouble with your kids? Let me tell you what my kids are about.
I'm laughing. We were staying with friends earlier on in the week, and we were off to run a workshop. And we always arrive at a workshop with a cup of coffee ready, so that there's none. We don't have to ask for one. We're just there. And Liz said to me, said, "Don't use a coffee bag. Get the coffee plunger out of the cupboard." I went round that kitchen 3 times. No coffee plunger. Each time I'm going around the kitchen, I'm getting more and more for. So I'll just use a coffee bag. What? And I thought, right, just settle down, take a breath, and there was the coffee plunger right in front of me the whole time
Yep.
because I just shifted how I was feeling about the whole situation. I felt that the original 3 times, I felt that life was being done to me. I was being told to change something that was out of my routine. Whereas when I took a deep breath and thought, actually, do you know what? I always prefer a coffee plunger to bag coffee. It always makes me feel better. I enjoy it more. And there was the coffee plunger.
Yep. And what you say about your spouse, most people, um, they take little snapshots of what things they don't like about their spouse,
Yeah.
and they
Well,
have all those, and they have
you've
all those things stored. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
you've met Lizzie, and we've had conversations the three of us in the past, but more and more the language we use with one another is very 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 loving, which it maybe always hasn't been.
Yeah. Yeah, when we have all those snapshots stored of what we dislike or hate about the other person, then
Mm.
it's going to affect our tone of voice. It's going to affect it affects everything in that relationship. So the quantum physics is the the beingness of the observer affects the beingness of what they see and what's showing up in their life. Or doesn't show up in their life. Money doesn't show up. A person's frustrated. They have issues with money. Can't find a coffee plunger. I mean, all these things because that beingness is imprinting on this holographic world we live in.
It's and we could go on and on about how your reality is different to my reality. How does that work?
Um, so yeah, I do this and talk about this in class frequently. If I
Mm.
took 15 people and put them up on stage, and I walked up to each one of them, I took my hand and slapped them on the side of the face, exactly the same place, exactly the same force. How many different responses do you think I'd get? 15.
15.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least. So what changes that? It's what the person's making up about what's happening in their life.
Hmm.
Um, and so and most of these perspective shifts or what you're making up, they happen at a very early age. The kid feels like they've been made wrong or they had some type of a trauma. Maybe they didn't get a pony. Me, it was a baby elephant.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
And something happens, you get hit, you get yelled at, and it creates a perspective on life, and the perspective that gets locked in is a not perspective, NOT. Life shouldn't be this way. I'm not good enough. I can't do anything right. And once that trauma is experienced and they gets melded with a whole bunch of not statements, that person begins to live from the from the beingness of I am not instead of I am instead of I am. And once they believe they are an I am not, that's where all pain and suffering occurs. All the mental anguish that people are living in now and taking the depressants and antidepressants and all the stuff is really a belief in separation from God.
Is that is as you look out on the world today? Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The people, once somebody believes they're separate from God, they look for something in their outer world for them to feel something inside themselves. There's a hole inside of them,
And I think,
and
sorry, go on.
yeah, and that hole can only be filled by God. In there's the scriptures according to Thomas, doubting Thomas in scriptures. One of the phrases in there says, "If you go within, what is within will save you. If you don't go within, what is within will destroy you." So for people to find, and I've worked with people with just severe trauma. So if somebody doesn't want to go in, they're terrified of feeling that trauma again or that pain again. But if and when they can go through that, they're going to find something in that pain they're going to find the blessing in it. As weird as that may sound. And I've worked with people who are involved with satanic ritual abuse and some really really horrendous stuff. And in every one of these people, they've been able to find this blessing inside of them and thank the person for the experience, not just forgive, but actually thank the person for the experience. And all of a sudden, their lives come back online and
Mhm.
and, and what they experience is the beautiful how powerful love really is, not little squeaky ass love, but really really the big, like really big love. It
You
has to.
use big, well, I was say big words. I mean, you use love, but capital letters love.
Mhm.
You've used the word hate, during this conversation. Um, is there anything in between, or is that
There's
is
a
there a
whole
boundary
bunch
view?
of feelings, but there's a whole bunch of feelings. The only thing that really moves us forward and is sustainable as a humanity is love. Anything else is a reaction from. um, any and scriptures, love is God is love, life, light, and truth. So
Yeah.
we can, I could even say the word God 20 years ago, by the way. but I could say, and love was hard for me to say as well. But I started to play with. I remember reading that quote, and I started to mix these words in. Well, about truth. Yeah, I like truth. I'd much rather live in truth than in lies, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and anything that's based in a lie, it takes a lot of energy to maintain a lie. If I tell you a lie, I tell somebody else another lie, I have to keep those two lies in my consciousness to make sure that I can keep them separate. And it takes a lot of energy to do that. So if you look at our world right now, anything in the world that's increasing in cost and diminishing in effectiveness is based on a lie.
Mhm.
Anything that's based in love and truth, the cost and the cost is going to go down and the effectiveness is going to go up. And if you take and just start looking at life from that perspective, you'll be able to see things really, really quickly. Look at our healthcare. What's going on
Mhm.
with that? Look at our global policies on war. How's that working for us?
Yeah. I think that's a really fascinating question that you just raised. Yeah, if we look at the world, when we look at the world and just ask how's this going for us, it's it's not a pretty place at the moment, is it? You know, we need to find a new way of humanity.
Yeah. And everybody's out to save the planet. The planet's been here for 4.5 billion years. The planet's going to be fine whether we're here or not.
Yeah.
It's how what do we choose for us as a humanity of how we interact with each other. What do we put first in our own lives? And um, when all this stuff was going on with all the politics and stuff and some of the things I have privy information to, I was like, man, this is really tough. And the satanic ritual stuff, and I mean some really really horrendous things. Um, I said, so I took rather than making it all wrong, I like took it inside me and said, where do I have maybe not that degree, but where do I have that level of hate inside me? Where do I have these types of feelings inside me? Because if it's going on out there, it's going on in me, and if I can change what's going on in me, then the world outside will change as well. Everything out here is a reflection. So what
Yeah.
we're doing here is people are waking up to how important it is for them to how to say this, for somebody to really really have the life they love. They got to find what they hate inside themselves that's limiting them and they're defending. Once they can find what they're defending and what's limiting them the most and find that hate, then they can have the life they love.
So, quite fortuitously, just one of the emails that was in my stack when I got up this morning was one from you, inviting me to one of the programs that Encompass Life runs called How to Wow. Uh,
Yes, sir.
is that an entry level program that you run? What's the
Yeah, it's
concept?
a standalone program. It's a
Mhm.
3-day class, and what we're doing in this class is um, a couple of things. One, a lot of people may have a great idea to implement something in their life or in their family, but they don't know how they're going to do it. So
Mhm.
in this class, it's a really simple and replicable way that you can have a breakthrough result in a matter of seconds or minutes. It also has people produce a new level of emotional intelligence. And here's
Mhm.
how I define emotional intelligence here. I used to go into a reaction. It would take me maybe 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 decades before I'd go, oh, I could have just done that and had a whole different life, right? With what we do here is if there's a reaction, maybe a reaction will only last maybe a millisecond or a few seconds or maybe a few minutes. So the person becomes um, begins to live in effective action. If I go into reaction, all bets are off.
Yeah.
So if somebody's desire to start a business, if somebody's desire to have a new level of ease in their family and their relationship with their kids, would have that strong emotional intelligence, being able to stay and have an effective action conversation right there in that instant is is a wonderful way to describe what we're doing and how to wow. And it's fun and easy. And we do really deep work, and we use humor as a vehicle to have it go in.
I think
Humor's important.
using humor as a tool to accelerate is so powerful. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. So you ask great questions, Stu. Um,
Doing it for a
most
while.
Thank you, sir, man. So most people believe their uh, limiting belief systems and that little negative voice in their head is actually them, and they that voice has run them for years. So when I can interject humor in it, what it does, it separates that negative limiting belief systems from the individual. Once the humor goes into, they can see it as two distinctive, different things, and
Hmm.
so they can, oh my God, that's my crap, and all the things they were embarrassed about 30 seconds before, now they can laugh about because they got through it. As soon as somebody can laugh at it, they can't wait to share that they just got through something. They're the most proud of being able to do it.
And I mean, it's so powerful. I'm doing some work with an organisation at the moment, and when I walk in on a Friday morning, I kick the door, I push the door open, and shout, "Happy Friday, everyone!" And I tell you what, yeah, the fun, the laughter that happens for the next few minutes before they remember
Yeah,
the way that they normally are. Yeah, the conversation flies. We all build a little bit deeper relationship with one another, and then the moment passes, and it's yeah the skill, the challenge for every one of us, I think, is to hold those moments so that we live in that space for longer each time.
yep. And enthusiasm. Our natural state is enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Um, when we do a thing, we just go, "How you doing today?" Great, I tell you, great. And like it'll be like really expressive. And so, do something, do something that's going to raise the energy of everybody on the call. Some of our more advanced classes, and if they have to think, they screw up.
Yeah.
You can't think. You just got to be, not just be enthusiastic. No thinking, just be enthusiastic. You sing a song, do something, get up and do a dance, do anything. Just just jump up and play like a little kid. One of the classes I did a number of years ago before I made my big switch.
Hmm.
It was about, geez, I remember. It was like a self-expression and leadership program, and we had to get up. I had to get up on stage and raise the energy of everybody in the room. Dude, I sucked. I was so terrible at
Yeah.
it. And at the end of the class, we had those people who attended. Their spouse, one lady's spouse, came in bringing a little kid, maybe like a little 5-year-old kid. And he's in the room. He sees the stage. And he sees a microphone up on the stage. I mean, he's not in the room 5 minutes. He walks up, grabs the hold of the microphone. He goes, "Oh, MacDonald had a form," and everybody's yeah, yeah. I mean, he's not in the room 5 minutes. He has everyone singing "Oh, MacDonald," and the leader of the class just goes, "Told you guys, look how easy it is. Just play." And I was like, dang, 5-year-old can do it.
Yeah, because we've been conditioned, haven't we? Yeah, as we get older, we get conditioned through language like "you can't," "don't do
Yeah,
that," "grow up." Just yeah.
and try to play right. How do you
Mhm.
play right? I
Yeah.
mean, just go up. One of my friends, who Willie Nelson is?
Yes, I do.
Oh, how about that? One of my friends' coach was Willie Nelson's coach.
Right.
And Willie, he goes, "You know what? Tell you the truth, your voice kind of sucks."
Yep.
He goes, "So Willie, how did you get to be Willie Nelson? How did you get to be so popular?" He goes, "I got a secret." And the guy goes, "Tell me about your secret, Willie." He goes, "All I would do is when I'm sitting up on stage, I would make eye contact and address find somebody who's kind of into what I'm doing, and I'd make eye contact with, and I'll have a good time with that person. I'd find somebody over here, I'd find somebody in the middle of the room, and I'd find somebody over here. When I got 3 people having fun, the whole room came up." He goes, "It doesn't matter. No matter I have a crappy voice. I'm gonna go out on stage and I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna find people to connect with and have fun with them, and then everything else happens." So be
Yeah.
crappy. Be and
It's
have fun being crappy.
and it's the one of the things I do in workshop and events is I find where the energy is being reflected from. and that's where I go, and that begins to lift the energy of the room. Because I mean, you can. I mean, this week's audience they were they were a quiet bunch, but by the time we got further into the day, when I picked up on the reflections of the energy, it began to bounce. And when I was thinking that day two is going to be just as dull as, oh, guess what? It was a little bit. But when I got
Hmm.
that energy flying, wow, the day just flew, and I can see how exciting that can be. And I mean, Willie Nelson's voice isn't that bad, is it?
Compared to somebody else, you know.
Oh, well, okay, fair enough. I'll give you that one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
but
So, people listening to this podcast, and we've gone everywhere from spirituality, engineering, God, quantum physics. Um, some people might not be listening anymore, but those who've stayed with us, they might be thinking, is this science based or not? But you've just been awarded, given you are now a doctor of philosophy for all of the work you've done over the last few decades.
yes, sir.
How did that come about? And congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah,
Amazing.
it was. It was interesting because most modalities are like trying to get rid of anger, trying to get rid of all these things that people hate. Well, if you can't get rid of this stuff. You can't destroy energy. You
Hmm.
can have energy can change forms. So one of the things I've been speaking about for years, decades, is you got to get a PhD in anger. You got to get a PhD in jealousy. You got to get a PhD in shame. And then once you have a PhD in it, once you really understand what it comes from, what it costs you, all because you may clear it up with your mom or your dad, then it's going to come back with a girlfriend or it's going to come back in another form. It's going to come at you from another form. So you got to recognize a pattern, what it does inside you, and its costs and payoffs, and understand how it can get a hold of you. So once you get a PhD in it, you own the pattern rather than the pattern owning you. So I've been speaking about this for years. You remember the power of language, right? PhD, we're
Yeah.
talking about getting a PhD, PhD, PhD. I've been speaking about it for 15, 20 years this way. And we've had numerous doctorates come through our program, doctors in psychology, doctors in Christian counseling. We've had a lot of people come through our program. They go, man, what you're doing here is really, really different because most people deal with the thoughts. You got to think positive thoughts, don't think negative thoughts. What we do is we deal with the feelings and change body chemistry, which changes brain chemistry and changes thoughts instantaneously. So we're way
Hmm.
faster than anything I've been involved with. So the guy told his university where he got his PhD about what we're doing, and they called me in and interviewed me, and we've had numerous talks over the last, I don't know, I guess almost a year now. And kept, I mean, like grilling me, like, okay, how's this work? How's this work? Went through our curriculum. He goes, do you realize what your curriculum is about? This would qualify you for a PhD with all the stuff, all the writings you've already done. And I said, no, that's nice. But anyway,
That's
they interviewed me and interviewed people who come to classes and saw we just had a lady come to class who's going to get a gallbladder removed. She came to class and goes back to the doctor and goes, "Hey, your gallbladder's healthy. What did you do?" Like that type of stuff, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really different. Of I spoke it into existence, and then it showed up. I had to do some classes and some stuff as well with it. But I mean, he goes, "Yeah, the body of what you're doing, what you've done here, is like next level PhD work." I was like, "Wow, that's nice."
That's nice. I think that's
I mean,
brilliant.
I was
Nice.
shocked.
Yeah. I think that's the when we are willing, when we have the humility, along with the enthusiasm to ask the deep questions and go with wherever it goes. I think that's a fascinating part of life that we seem to have. I mean, humanity, the developed world. It seems a part of the world that we've maybe lost a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, and enthusiasm is a big deal. I am being childlike. I've been really serious about things in my life, and like yes, a number of years ago when I got out of all that stress, and then I got into another company that was stressful as well, and then finally I got out of all that stuff as well. So I'm gonna do what I'm gonna start my own coaching company. I was doing things on the side, but I'm really gonna get serious about it. 'Cause I had clients who were asking me to train, like, "Hey, can you train me in your modality?" Well, there's no one trained in my modality except for me, you know. So I started getting requests for that, and I put together the curriculum. But when I started to do it, um, I just started to, instead of worrying about, like, can I make it? Because I didn't have any letters behind my name at that time. Like, who's going to believe what I'm saying? And and I just said, you know what? I'm just going to start having fun. So I started acting just like a kid, and just started being playful and having, I started having fun for no reason. And what I
Hmm.
discovered when I started having fun for no reason, I began to have a lot of reasons for why I could have fun. But until I could have for fun for no reason, I couldn't see all the reasons I could have for having fun.
That's beautiful. I mean, we're coming up on time, and the last question I was going to ask you was, what's the one thing we can all do today, tomorrow, in order to begin to make our lives more fulfilling? And
Yeah,
you've just done it. You got there ahead of me. Go out and have fun like a child.
yeah. And one other thing, here's if you make this change in your just one change in your language, one changing one word, you'll you will notice something very different. If you can start replacing the word not and get somebody to help you.
Hmm.
But most people walk around saying, I don't like, I don't want, I'm not this, I'm not that. If you can start changing the word, if you can change the word not and start to speak only what you love, something's going to happen in your noggin, and you're going to get way smarter. I promise you. Your brain, we have people coming here who have cognitive decline, and they start speaking this way, and their brain begins to rewire themselves. And you will get way smarter. You'll start your subconscious will begin to start to see solutions for you, and you'll start to project. You'll start to have the quantum world show up in what you love, especially with your partner, especially in your partner and your family.
Say, Mark from Encompass Life, thank you so much for your time today. And I
You're
look forward
welcome,
to
sir.
getting this out and getting the conversation happening.